Hey everybody. So today I wanted to talk about this. I think it's something important to talk about. Um a lot of times you're going to see people that and I think part of the problem is, right? Like you hear these like insane numbers, like 6.3 billion, right? And people don't think, "Oh, that's a lot of money." Well, they're not really considering it like in their own terms, right? Like how much money do you have? Like the government gets quite a bit of your money, and your money ends up as a part of this figure of 6.3 billion dollars, right? And let's be let's be completely honest. Um 6.3 billion dollars is just the tip of the iceberg. So, and if you don't know what's happening, Vice President JD Vance launched this, like, it's a task force or whatever. And basically, so here's the thing. Nick Shirley's been going around investigating all these people, finding like Somalian groups that live in different states, and not even just Somalians, like also Russians and people that have like come here like fresh on a fresh visa. They're first generation immigrants. Um, and they come here, and then what they do is they initialize these like fraudulent programs. And what's funny about it is JD Vance is essentially launching this task force, and the funny part is like it's like, okay, well, you launched this task force or whatever, but like what's the reason behind it, right? Like think about that for a minute. Well, the reason is that Nick Shirley is embarrassing the United States government, and that's unacceptable. So what's happening is Nick Shirley's going out there. Nick Shirley's going door to door, interviewing these people, saying, "Hey, I see here on this form you've received like $2.3 million. You have a mansion, a Corvette in the driveway, a Dodge Challenger, you have a Dodge Charger, you have a Tesla, you have an Escalade, and these are people that just moved here. They have no skills whatsoever, and they're getting paid to babysit their own kids and to babysit their own elderly. That's what these programs are. So they come here, they initialize a program, and then they use that program to defraud the government for millions and millions of dollars per person. Per person. Keep that in mind. So when you start looking at these figures like 6.3 billion, divide that by like 3 or 4 million, and then you have about a rough number of how many people are defrauding the government. Now, when I think about this and I think about like, hey, you know, I had an elderly grandmother, right, who needed hospice and, needed Medicaid and all of these other, things, right? And what's ridiculous is that we had to fight tooth and nail to get any of these things done, um, and basically like find loopholes and you know do all of these things in order for her to get the care that she needed. We've lived here our entire lives. We're citizens, and these people that are coming in on fresh visas and scamming the United States government for millions and millions of dollars are just, you know, making it to where the kind of like safety protocols that are in place, like the rules, are so ridiculously stringent on actual legit people that just need help, that they can't get help because the only people that know how to get around it are the scammers, right? Because they're invested. That's their entire livelihood, is scamming the system. So really what I'm saying is like I think I agree with Zach here, because Asman Gold, because you really want to you think about this, right? Like Old Testament personal accountability, that's going to stop it in its tracks. And the reason is because If we find out that you've taken like more than $2 million from the United States government, and we're just like, oh, you defrauded us like 2 mil. Okay, um, maybe here's the death penalty because you weren't supposed to do that. You knew you weren't supposed to do that. You came into the country regardless and did it anyways, and you stabbed us in the back and you stole from everybody. And now their grandparents, their kids, uh, people that are in our nation, our citizens, cannot take care of themselves because you've stolen from them. I mean, I see a lot of people advocating for the death penalty, and I'm one of those people that like I don't trust the government to have that amount of power. I don't want them to say, "Hey, you did a thing I don't like, so now you're just going to die." Like no real trial, no way to defend yourself, no whatever. I don't like that idea, right? It's a door that once you open it, it's hard to close, right? And you really want to make a point, think about it like this, right? Like, what happens if like some like hardcore, far left, super progressive, like pro LGBT everything comes in and it's like, you know what? Um, we're gonna give the death penalty for misgendering people. Is that what you want? Do you want like the death penalty for upsetting LGBT people? Like that doesn't make any sense, right? So that's one of the reasons why I kind of don't trust the government because I can see like our government is like a pendulum. Like every so often we swing and then we have a tendency to swing into the extremes of either side. And now I'm not sure about you, but um all this like woke nonsense that I've been seeing on the internet, about like, you know, respect my pronouns and, blah, blah, blah. And you should just be psychic and be like aware of my pronouns or you, in order to engage me in a conversation, you should be forced to um, ask me what my pronouns are in the first place. And like, no, that's controlled speech. I disagree with that entirely. Like, you know, if somebody wants to be like even somewhat disrespectful out in the open world, like, and if let me say this: if you're a woman and you look like a dude and you have a beard and you turn around, I'm gonna be like, hey, what's up, dude? Sorry, like I'm not gonna like control my speech. I'm not gonna like, oh, what's your pronouns? Blah blah blah. Like because you don't have that right over me. I have the right to free speech. You don't have the right to control my speech. It's 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 that simple, right? But here's the thing: is if we ever swing that far over to that side of that pendulum, I guarantee you that's where it's gonna go, and it's gonna go to the point of like severe penalties for not doing it because that's what they do every single time, right? Like some lunatic goes out and goes on a shooting spree somewhere in the world, right? Or in the United States. And then what does our government do? The first thing they do is they look at us and they go, "Hey, one person did it. We cannot trust the rest of you to have the same right. So now we're going to talk about removing that right." I don't know about you, but that's not okay with me. Like if you understand the Constitution, you understand that those rights are individual rights and you can only judge an individual based on their own actions. You know what I mean? Otherwise you're doing the exact same thing, you're doing the exact same discrimination that happened, during slavery, during everything else, where they were generalizing people's skin color and saying, well, okay, well, you belong in X group, and so you're subhuman now, and we get to treat you however we want to treat you, right? Like that's not a society I want to live in. I want to live in a society of merit where if you work your ass off and you're working hard and you're out there and you're just trying new things, you're innovating, you're trying to do whatever you got to do to reach the top, right? Like you should be rewarded for that. You should be celebrated even, right? Um I don't want to live in a world where you can just be like a deadbeat scumbag and come from anywhere in the world with like 50 crimes, 50 felonies under your belt, and then just be like, you know what? I'm going to set up a hospice care and I'm just going to defraud the government for like $10 million. I don't want to live in that world. So we need to stop all of this. We need to stop like pretending like it's okay to justify like transitioning into the same woke ideology that the left uses, and we need to get away from that. Like I know the right is always, well, we got to fight dirty to win, and blah blah blah, and all this stuff. And it's like, right, but how far is the line, right? How far are you willing to go? Are you willing to go so far that you create the exact society that you were fighting against in the first place? Because if you're just doing that, then why are we even bothering, right? So this is kind of what I'm saying. Like I think he's right. We need like Old Testament personal accountability. And I'm not saying like it has to, like me personally, like I said, I don't really care for the death penalty. I think it's one of those things, it's like a line too far. Um, but I will say this. I think the United States government should have the power to effectively, like if you've committed a heinous enough crime, I think they should just be able to revoke your citizenship. I think you get to go live in the ocean after that, right? Like, and then at that point, your survival is your own responsibility. The United States government shouldn't be responsible for you, right? Like, they should literally just have an armed guard on, like, and maybe get, like, the National Guard, like, once a month to round up everybody, put them on little paddle boats, and just take them out to the dead center of the ocean and be like, all right, here you go. This is where you live now. Here's a fishing rod. Figure it out. I don't know. I don't think that people should, if you're going to act like uncivil, then I don't see why you should be able to retain citizenship. If you're going to be one of these people that throws rocks in the streets, hurting people, throwing Molotovs, setting fires, trying to throw bombs in New York, uh, you know, all this stuff, well, you know, I think you get what you get, right? Like, if you're going to act like that, then you don't need to be here. That was part of the agreement with your citizenship in the first place, is that you're going to act like a human being. And if you're going to act like an animal or a monster, then I don't see how you get to keep your citizenship. I think you just, at that point, you got to go. And if that means, bringing in a C-130 and just mass dumping people in Rwanda, like I'm good with that. We don't need to be living with a bunch of criminals. We don't need to be living with a bunch of people that don't have any respect for the law, or society, or their neighbors, or anybody else. Like, we don't need to tolerate that behavior, because that behavior is essentially destructive to society. And eventually, what's going to happen is we're going to reach a point where it's unrecoverable. And I think personally, I think we've already kind of like hit the tip of the nail when it comes to that. And the reason I say that is because, I mean, just look at how much fraud. Here, let's check this out. Look, we have our own people. Like this guy, same idea. Just airdrop this dude into Rwanda. You're over here telling people how to defraud the government, and like weasel their way around tax law. Like, okay, bye. Get out of here. Reddit doing the same thing. I don't know. We had the federal government and Facebook, right? They were like over here spying on people, deleting tweets and deleting Facebook posts and violating people's rights and all this sort of stuff. Well, maybe you guys somehow get into Reddit and you figure out where these users live, and if they live in America, maybe they go to Rwanda too, right? Like, I just don't like the idea of like trying to weasel your way around paying what you owe, right? Like if you come into our nation, you're using our roads, you're driving, you're, doing all this stuff, you're using our infrastructure, you're coming in and using our medical facilities and all this other stuff. Well, you can pay your fair share and then you can get out. It's that simple. I don't like the idea of people coming in and not paying what they owe. Like if you're going to come in, and you want to spend your money, like that's cool, but just do it the right way. You know what I mean? Don't try to weasel out of it, right? Like that's a really crappy thing to do. Here I was bringing up on just Google itself, asking it about like how much fraud, and look at this, right? Experts estimate suggests or expert estimates suggest the U.S. government loses between 550 billion to 1 trillion annually to fraud. So he wasn't wrong. So everybody that's in the comments that's over here like whining and crying and being like, "Oh, what does he know? He never leaves his room," you know. Yeah, okay. Do you think he really didn't Google that before making the tweet? You look like an idiot. USAID budget, right? Like, and this is just some of the fraud, like some of the scams. Matter of fact, I think USAID just shouldn't exist. Period. Like, we shouldn't be sending money to other countries. If you know, that's what we have philanthropists for, right? Like, if they want to send money there, they want to like help the people out or whatever. Let them help them out, but let them help them out like in a way that makes sense. And the reason I say this is because I'm old enough to know what happened when the United States was dropping beans and rice in Africa, right? We destroyed the entire African beans and rice market because we flooded it by just giving free food to everybody that asked for it. That's the problem, right? We gave away all this food. We just sent them tons and tons and tons of food, and then none of the farmers were able to grow and sell their crops because nobody wanted to pay for it because they were like, oh, I don't have to pay for it. The United States government will just airdrop it for free on my front doorstep. That's kind of ridiculous, right? Now, if you really want to know my real opinion when it comes to like world hunger, you know, here we go. Check this out.
But like I said, I'm just trying to help. I'm trying to just do whatever I can for people. Like the World Hunger thing, the USA for Africa. Isn't that great? You guys hear the song? Nice song, isn't it?
Keep in mind this stand-up routine with Sam Kinison in 1985. It has been that long, and we are doing the same thing.
Beautiful. I'm like anybody else on the planet. I'm very moved by world hunger. I see the same commercials. Those little kids starving and very depressed. And I watch these things on TV, and I see those commercials, and I look at it, and I go, God, how cruel, you know? I see a little kid out there, and I go, fuck, you know, I know the film crew could give this kid a sandwich. You know the kid's not out there, filming a letter from home with a Betamax, huh? You know there's a director 5 feet away going, don't feed him yet! Get that sandwich out of here! It doesn't work unless he looks hungry! But I'm not trying to make fun of world hunger. Matter of fact, I think I have the answer, because I spend a lot of time working it out. And if you want to stop world hunger, stop sending them food. Don't send these people another bite, folks. You want to send them something, you want to help, send them U-Hauls. Send them U-Hauls, some luggage, send them a guy out there that goes, hey, you know, we've been driving out here every day with your food for like the last, 30, 40 years. And we were driving out here a day across the desert, and it occurred to us there wouldn't be world hunger if you people would live where the food is! You live in a desert! You understand that? You live in a fucking desert! Nothing grows out here! Nothing's gonna grow out here! You see this? Huh? See this? This is sand. Yeah. It's sand. You know it's gonna be 100 years from now, huh? It's gonna be sand! You live in a fucking desert! Get your kids, get your shit, we'll make one trip! We'll take you to where the food is! We have deserts in America, we just don't live in them, asshole! You guys been a great crowd. Thank you very much.
If Sam Kinison could see Arizona today, he'd be rolling over in his grave. Anyways, yeah, I mean, really, that's kind of what's up, right? Like, I mean, it's true. If you look at all these places around the world where they're like, oh, you know, I we're out here starving to death and blah blah blah, and then you actually go see like the film crew roll up, and you look at the area. It's like it's very obvious. There is no way food will ever grow there. They live in an area where nothing is growable. Like the land is not tillable. It's covered in like trash soup. You look out there and it's like plastic all over the place, littering the ground. It's just disgusting in general. Like, and it's filled with disease and ticks and everything else. You know, it's not a clean area. Nobody's bothered to like pick it up. Nobody's bothered to like control the land. Nobody's bothered to like cut down all the dead trees, and that's part of it. Like it's just that's the thing. It's like everybody doesn't really understand like you actually have to go and here's the funny thing. If you've ever studied like tribes, like and I'm talking about like it doesn't matter what tribe, right? Like it could be like a South American tribe or it could be an African tribe. Anywhere in the world where there's still tribes, you'll notice one thing. They do not stay in the same spot. Like they'll build like a little town. They'll bring their stuff. They'll bring like, you know, the the logs that they use to set up the thing, to hold the pot over the fire for the campfire, sort of, that sort of stuff. They'll bring that sort of stuff with them. But what you'll notice is that they never really stay in one spot forever. They might stay there for a generation. They might set up shop, work the land. Most of them don't work the land. They're just hunter gatherers. Um, but in South America, it's more of like a thing to work the land. Like they do like little crops and stuff like that, and purposefully seed areas, which is actually kind of an interesting difference. But anyways, when you look at the two cultures, it's like in Africa, for instance, they'll just set up shop somewhere for a couple of years, whatever, and then they'll go in and they'll hunt and do all their thing, and then when the hunting gets sparse, they'll leave the land and then they'll go and they'll move to a new location and set up. Okay. So, anyways, what I'm saying is like you're always going to be in a situation, like in that sort of a tribal situation, where you're effectively what you're doing is you're hunting and you're gathering just like minor things that are edible or whatever that is edible and safe, and it's not going to poison you to death. And then what you do is you're harvesting those things, and then when they run out, you move to a new area. So whenever the food gets sparse, whenever you're not, catching the weekly boar or whatever it is, once every like 3 to 4 days, um, and that food source runs out, then you have to move to another area, right? Where there's more boar and all that sort of stuff. But anyways, that's what I'm getting at, right? Like a lot of this world hunger wouldn't exist if people tried to, stop trying to live in like inhospitable places, right? Um, I would argue that like it's gotten so bad. Like we've had so many failures in our country. Like Gavin Newsom is just like a direct example of it, where California is failing. It's such a an insane degree at this point that he's actually physically trying to like send tax notices to people that haven't lived in the state in like over 10 years, right? This dude's like sending like fake bills, and you know what's crazy? If you were to do the same thing to the federal government, they would put you in prison. You would go into a box and spend the rest of your life in that box. But because Gavin Newsom is the government, he can, of California or whatever, he could just go send fake invoices out to people and just be like, well, we want tax money and you don't get a say. And, if you don't pay the bill, well, maybe we don't allow you ever back into California or whatever, right? Which is like the most BS thing I can imagine, right? But or maybe they put some like fake warrant out for your arrest or whatever. I don't know. In my opinion, that guy just needs to go to prison. Like he's a complete idiot. He's a complete disaster. And I don't understand how people keep voting for him. It's like, dude, this guy was over here during the COVID thing, just like, oh yeah, you can't leave your house, you can't go to work, you can't don't do anything whatsoever. Like you're not allowed to do anything until we tell you you can do something. Buying groceries, nope, stay home and suck it up and starve or whatever, right? Like it was it was like that. Like they were shutting businesses down. They were shutting businesses down. They were like people were losing their place because they couldn't pay rent because they couldn't go to work, right? That's what this idiot did. And then at the same time, while doing all of that, he was out there like a clown, just feasting it up with his friends at some restaurant, some bougie restaurant, using your tax money and just stuffing his face with his like yuppie friends. And I don't understand it. It's like, dude, how do you support that? Like, how do you look at that and you're like, you know what? I'm going to vote for that a second time or a third time. Like, that blows my mind. Like if somebody did that to me, my next thought is, how can I vote in a way that's going to put you in prison forever? I don't ever want to see you again. Like, you don't belong in society. You are not a functional member of society. And what you've done is so otherworldly tyrannical to me. Like, it's literal third world behavior, right? I believe we should just send you to Rwanda at that point. Like, you can get the hell out of our country. If you want to go be a tyrant, you could go be a tyrant over there and see how that works out for you. How about that? You know what I mean? Anyways, this is just like something I've been wanting to talk about because the math doesn't really math, and it's it's annoying that our government is just now finally getting around to like dealing with all the fraud. And one of the things that annoyed me too, and okay, this is like one of the really big reasons why like I was excited when this administration got into office, right? They had Doge come in, they were like auditing everything. They were like, "Hey, we found all this stuff." And they never even really finished all of that up and like wrapped all of that up. And then they just kind of canned the project quietly and they were like, "Well, it's too expensive, yada yada yada. We don't want to, you know, we don't want to pay for, a fraction of all of the illegal fraud happening in our country. We don't want to deal with that because, you know, God forbid people's money isn't being stolen from them at gunpoint, by the United States government and then just handed off to a bunch of scumbags, right? But, hey, whatever. I guess I'm just, arrogant or whatever, right? According to these like Reddit mod losers on the internet, right? These like hardcore lefties who just think everything should be free and yet at the same time simultaneously will absolutely refuse to help people in the way that they advocate that the government should help people, right? They think that, the government is like some sort of ultimate authority to like worship or whatever. And that's what's annoying. It's like you realize that you don't have to rely on the government for literally everything. You can literally just be like, hey, I'm going to take care of it myself. If you really truly believe in it and something like that, you can just take care of it yourself. Start a GoFundMe. Like, start a GoFundMe. Like, if you believe in helping, let's say, homeless veterans, go start a GoFundMe. Go start a website. Go start a GoFundMe. Like, do all of these things, just take in mass amounts of like money and then just do it. Go build a bunch of tiny homes. Like, you know what I mean? Like if you get enough money in donations, like if you get like a couple $100,000, you probably don't have to work for quite a while, right? Like you can pay your bills with some of that and then literally just go pick up a hammer, nails and wood and just start building, right? Like to some degree you kind of need like permitting and all this sort of stuff. But here's the thing. Like I know a lot of people out there that are like, "Oh, you got to get a degree in this and blah 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 and all this stuff." No, you don't. No, you don't. You don't really need all that. Like I've never seen one of these degree nerds build a house. Never. Like I've seen them look at the plans and approve the plans, but the plans really don't mean much of anything. Like they really don't. Like if you're a builder, you kind of already know what needs to be done. And I mean, if you're like an inexperienced builder, well, maybe you should be like working with other builders, right? Like go be an apprentice or whatever. Like learn to build things first. But I've never met like I've never met a construction crew that's made of like these like nerdy dudes who's like, I've been to college for 6 years studying how to build things, you know, like I'm an architect, like I've never met one. I've met one person who did that on a La Quinta up in like northern Texas. And he like drew up a bunch of plans. And even then, at that time, like I remember asking him about it, he only went to college for like 2 years. And it was basically just to make sure that he understood, like, by the way, like when you build things, there has to be structural support for the things that you build. And you need to like over engineer it because you don't know who the hell's going to be there, right? Like you don't know if it's going to be like some 800-pound land whale that's going to be moving into it or if it's some dude that's like anorexic and barely weighs 100 pounds, right? Like it's a spectrum. You don't know who's going to be there. And if you put down like some half-inch plywood on the floor and they step on it and fall through, well, there's a fair chance you might get sued, right? So make sure you build it right. This, that's why they have standards, right? Like the standard is 3/4 inch plywood, right, on floors, right? That's why whenever you stick frame a wall, right, and you're using 2x4s, every stud is 16 inch on center, right? Like that's why these things exist, is because it's there to make sure that there's enough structural support that it lasts more than a week, right? Because if you get like a heavy downfall rain and it's not built to support anything other than like the occasional gust of air that hits it, well, guess what? You get a heavy downpour, your building's screwed. It's done, right? So that's part of the reason why you have to learn these things, right? But like I said, most of these people, like I mean, most of these construction crews that I've run across, I mean, most of them are not even legal people, Um, they don't even speak English. Like you literally have to hire a translator and just be like, "Hey, can you do this thing?" And they're like, "Yeah," and then they just give you a thumbs up, and then they move right along and they do the thing, right? Like regardless of the plans, they'll just do the thing, and that's why you have inspectors. That's why you have all sorts of stuff, right? But oftentimes you can get away with building like a tiny home, and then you can build that tiny home on wheels and completely get away with like the entire inspection process and all this other stuff, because effectively what you're doing is you're building a mobile home, and a mobile home has like a different it has different regulations and stuff like that. I mean, and this is the thing, this is what I'm saying too, is like you don't even necessarily need um like an architect to do anything. You just need somebody to like give the thumbs up on it, right? So I think in most cities, I think you can draw up your own plans and then take the plans to the city, and the city has like a civil engineer who will look over the plans, and then they'll either give you a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So that's typically like that's how all that works, right? So I don't want to tell you to do something illegal, but um, I mean, I just know based on like doing things the hard way, like there's certain ways that you can get around things. And if you know what you're doing, then it makes sense. But, if you don't know and you don't have experience in doing the thing or whatever, don't do it. Don't do it. I mean, and I'm just telling you from my own experience, right? Like I don't typically mess. Okay, here's the thing. I could do a wood floor like nobody's business, right? Like if you want a bomb ass like wood floor that's like sanded up real smooth, looks great, has like a a deep rich color stain to it, and is completely like poly sealed, I can do that, right? My mistake was I thought I could do my kitchen in like vinyl tile, and I didn't realize that vinyl tile is basically just a scam. And I watched this dude install a bunch of vinyl tile, and I was like, oh, you know what? I could do this. It's so easy. So I bought a bunch of vinyl tile. I spent like a couple grand on vinyl tile. Did the entire kitchen, ripped up the floor, ripped up the linoleum, sanded the whole damn thing down. Did all this stuff, right? And then I did like exactly what this YouTuber guy did, and I put all the stuff down. They tell you like you don't need to put glue, you don't need to do all this stuff. Doing all that's just gonna whatever, it's gonna mess it all up. It's gonna make it difficult to remove and replace. And what happens if you drop something on one of the vinyl tiles and you need to yank it out and put a fresh one. Um, you know that sort of stuff, right? And I think a lot of times, like, people will see that sort of stuff and they hear the justifications and they're like, yeah, that sounds smart. And then you do it. And then, a couple of years later, you're like, oh shit, like it didn't really pan out the way that I wanted it to. And now it looks like garbage. And now you're considering other things, right? So my advice to you would be like, just for my own, like, living it and learning it the hard way. Um, if you're ever in that position, instead of like going around and like thinking like, oh, I could just do it myself and save the money and blah blah blah. Like I said, if you don't know what you're doing, do yourself a favor, just save a little extra, right? Like because realistically, had I just saved like another like 3K, I probably could have just hired somebody to put tile, like real tile, nice real tile. So and that's part of kind of what I'm saying, right? So next time maybe just, you know, instead of doing it the way I did it and screwing it up and then making an ugly mess, save a couple $1,000s, do it right, hire somebody. I think even Costco has has a crew now where like you can like source them for like retiling floor and stuff. So, uh, maybe just look into that or whatever. I doubt the rate is any different, but like if you were like a non Costco member, I doubt the the rate would change. But it's something to look into. You could probably like just get some really nice tile or whatever, and then put in, put the tile wherever you want to put it, and I'm sure it'll look really nice and everything else. And typically those jobs are done by people that have been doing it for decades on decades, right? So they kind of have a grasp at what they're doing. Um, and they can make it look extra nice, right? Like, and they can also make it functional in a way that you maybe hadn't considered before. Like, so that way you're not like accidentally spilling water and then it gets trapped under like an area that you can't get access to, and then it starts rotting and causes black mold and all this other stuff, right? So there's always things to consider that you wouldn't normally think about. That's why it's better to pay a professional, right? So, but anyways, with all that said, I think we've gone over enough. So I'm going to end the video here, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, thumbs up, subscribe, leave a comment down below what you think. If you think I'm wrong, you think I'm an idiot, you can, feel free to let me know in the comments. So.